The sickest battles in the world. The sickest battles in the world. One story that will shock you. Imagine a city where every street became a grave, where the ground was no longer dirt, but bones, frozen blood, and rubble, where death didn't come only from bullets, but from hunger, cold, and pure despair. In just a few months, more than 2 million people died. Soldiers, civilians, entire families wiped out. This wasn't just a battle. It was the bloodiest massacre in human history. This was the Battle of Stalingrad. In 1942, Adolf Hitler believed victory was almost locked in. Nazi Germany was pushing deep into Soviet territory, and one target became highly symbolic: Stalingrad. The city wasn't just strategic, it was personal. It carried Stalin's name. Taking it would humiliate the enemy, crush morale, and send a loud message to the world. What no one expected was that Stalingrad would turn into a human meat grinder, a place where lives were burned through like ammo. In August 1942, hell came down from the sky. The German Luftwaffe unleashed relentless air raids. Within days, Stalingrad was reduced to a burning wasteland. Hospitals were obliterated. Schools vanished. Apartment blocks collapsed into smoking ruins. An estimated 40,000 civilians were killed in the opening weeks alone, buried alive, burned to death, torn apart. Still, many refused to flee. The city had to hold. Every extra day of resistance cost thousands of lives, but it slowed the German advance. By September, German troops entered the city thinking the win was just around the corner. They were dead wrong. Fighting stopped being about neighborhoods and turned into battles for single buildings, then floors, then stairwells, then rooms. One factory could change hands 10 times in a single day. This is where soldiers coined the term rat war: brutal, silent, up-close combat. Men slept next to corpses just to stay warm. Wounded soldiers begged to be put out of their misery. The smell of death never left. October was pure nightmare fuel. This was the deadliest month of the battle. The life expectancy of a newly arrived soldier was less than 24 hours. Machine guns never stopped firing. Snipers turned ruins into death traps. Hunger spread fast. Soldiers survived on rats, glue, leather belts, whatever they could chew. Bodies piled up so high they were used as cover. By this point, estimates already pointed to over 1 million dead and wounded, and winter hadn't even fully hit yet. In November 1942, with temperatures dropping to -30 degrees Celsius, the Red Army launched a massive counteroffensive. German forces were surrounded. Supply lines were cut. No food. No ammo. No winter gear. Still, Hitler ordered them to hold their ground. No retreat. That decision doomed hundreds of thousands. Some froze to death standing upright. Others lost their minds. Some took their own lives. Hunger became deadlier than bullets. December and January marked total collapse. Inside the encirclement, reports of cannibalism, executions, and complete mental breakdowns began to surface. Letters were written that would never be delivered. Distress calls went unanswered. The streets of Stalingrad were carpeted with frozen bodies, stacked, abandoned, forgotten. The death toll climbed past anything the world had ever seen. Over 2 million dead, wounded, and missing. Germans, Soviets, and civilians all mixed together in one massive open-air grave. No other battle in history came close. In February 1943, silence finally fell. What remained of the German army surrendered. Of the more than 300,000 soldiers who entered Stalingrad, fewer than 90,000 came out alive, and only about 5,000 would ever make it home years later. The city was unrecognizable. No life, just ruins, ashes, and bones buried under the snow. Stalingrad had held, but at an unimaginable cost. The Battle of Stalingrad wasn't won by genius strategy alone. It was won by human endurance pushed way past the breaking point. This was the moment the tide of World War II began to turn. But for the dead, the war never ended. Even today, human remains are still found beneath the city's soil. Untold stories remain buried there, because Stalingrad wasn't just a battle, it was hell on earth. And the price was more than 2 million human lives, the sickest battles in the world. The war where dying became routine. Imagine a place where the sound never stopped. Explosions day and night. Screams mixed with gunfire. The sky ripped open by planes falling in flames. And the ground covered with bodies no one could bury. In just 5 months, nearly 1 million soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing. Not because of one single decision, but because of a chain of human errors that turned the Battle of the Somme into one of the bloodiest episodes in history. This wasn't just another battle of World War I. It was the moment the world realized that modern war meant dying on an industrial scale. The context. Before hell. By 1916, Europe had been bleeding for almost 2 years. Trench warfare had locked the conflict in place. No one advanced. No one retreated. Thousands died every single day for just a few yards of land. The Allies, mainly British and French forces, decided to launch a massive offensive against the German Empire along the Somme River in northern France. On paper, the plan looked simple. Bomb the German lines for days, destroy the trenches, cut the barbed wire, then send the infantry forward to claim victory. The problem was simple. War doesn't follow plans. July 1916, the worst first day in history. On July 1st, 1916, the sky over the Somme went dark. For 7 straight days, British artillery fired more than 1.5 million shells at German positions. The generals believed no one could survive that. They were wrong. When British soldiers climbed out of the trenches, walking in straight lines, carrying heavy packs, they met something they didn't expect. The Germans were alive and waiting. Machine guns opened fire. Within hours, bodies piled up in the open fields. Men were cut down in half. Others were trapped in barbed wire, screaming until they died. Casualties in July alone. Around 500,000 killed, wounded, or missing. 60,000 casualties in a single day, the worst day in British military history. The Somme River literally changed color. August 1916, the war never stops. August brought rain, mud, and decay. The bodies from July had never been buried. They bloated, burst, and rotted under the sun and water. Rats fed on the dead. Flies covered everything. The attacks continued. Gaining just a few yards cost thousands of lives. Wounded soldiers drowned in shell craters filled with water. Men slept pressed against corpses without even realizing it. In the sky, something new was happening. Planes started falling more often. Improvised dogfights. Pilots burned alive. Aircraft crashing into trenches. Casualties in August. Approximately 200,000. The Somme offered no relief. September 1916. Machines of death. September marked the arrival of something never seen before. The first tanks in military history. But they were slow, unreliable, and easy targets. Some got stuck in the mud. Others were destroyed before reaching enemy lines. Infantry kept advancing under relentless fire. Bodies were used as stepping stones. The stench of death was so intense soldiers vomited inside their gas masks. Above them, mid-air collisions became common. Machine guns jammed. Pilots fell in flames. Casualties in September. Around 150,000. Morale was shattered. The orders stayed the same. Keep going. October 1916. Mud-swallowing men. October turned the battlefield into a swamp. It rained non-stop. Men sank waist-deep into mud. Some simply disappeared. Screams came from the ground, then stopped. Trenches collapsed with soldiers inside. Wounded men froze to death before help arrived. The artillery never stopped. The earth shook day and night. Casualties in October. Approximately 100,000. Every single meter gained cost far too many lives. November 1916. The end without victory. In November, the cold set in. Attacks slowed not out of mercy, but exhaustion. The Somme battlefield was unrecognizable. No trees standing. No buildings intact. Only craters, bones, and abandoned equipment. When the offensive finally ended, the The result was brutal. Nearly 1 million casualties. Only a few kilometers gained. No decisive victory. Casualties in November. Around 50,000. The final silence was more terrifying than the noise. The legacy of the Somme. The Battle of the Somme proved something horrifying. Modern war didn't need brilliance. It only needed bodies. Men were treated like numbers. Lives were spent like ammunition. Even today, bones are still found in that region. Unexploded shells continue to kill. And thousands of soldiers were never identified. The Somme wasn't just a battle. It was a warning to the world. And no one listened.